Hi, thank you so much for joining me live on Wellness Wednesdays. Today we'll be chatting about controlling your delivery, listening with curiosity, and consuming biographies with Manasa Srinivas. As the leader of the Rams engineering team, Manasa has the broad responsibility for the analysis of all safety, reliability, availability, and maintainability aspects of aircraft design. She leads a cross-functional team covering safety, reliability, availability, maintainability engineering, as well as the interface and support of other core engineering functions such as systems engineering, autonomy, flight physics, hardware and software engineering, as well as human factors, ground and flight test, and certification. Prior to joining Wisk, Manasa was a technical project manager and a system safety reliability engineer at Collins Aerospace. Manasa also spent a year at Intel, where she was responsible for code testing of the SoC chip for a development program. Manasa earned a master's in electrical engineering from San Francisco State University and a master's in program management from Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. Her passion for knowledge has led her to gain many certifications, most recently a certificate in leadership and management from Notre Dame, Mendoza College of Business. During her free time, she enjoys reading nonfiction and participating in events geared towards supporting women in STEM. She's a member of the Women of Electric Vehicles Bay Area chapter and the Wisk Women's group to support and encourage women in technology. And with that, I'll be adding her on.
Hey,
Hello!
how are you? This is so exciting.
This is so exciting for me too. Your background is just so inspiring, and I wanted to take a quick minute to just um, explain to your audience who I am. So I'm Ricky. I'm a aerospace engineering graduate student at Georgia Tech, and it is my deepest belief that as minorities in STEM, we have to take care of ourselves first in all the ways, spiritually, physically, socially, mentally, every which way. And I do these Instagram lives called Wellness for Leadership in STEM, so that we can talk about the next generation of STEM leaders who look different and who are intersectional and who come in all varieties of shapes, sizes, types of sexual orientation, all the things. So if it's all right with you, I'd love to jump into the conversation with the main topics, unless you had anything that you wanted to share.
No, yes, we can definitely jump into the topics. But before we do that, just wanted to say hello to your viewers and your audience. I'm Manasa, so it's great to be spending this next few minutes with you. Thank you.
Yay! Okay, so our first topic is controlling your delivery. And something that you shared with me is how, as a leader, it's impossible to make everyone happy with the decisions that we make. And there's always at least one person who's hurt by something we do or say. Could you speak more on this and what you've learned personally from your experiences joining and leading all these teams?
Yes, absolutely. So, about 80% of the time, the decisions that leaders make is because there's a change induced into the equation. So it could be organizational changes, it could be project scope changes. So when this happens, people have a natural tendency to resist that change because we don't want to get out of our comfort zone. So what happens when when that change is induced is because people tend to resist change, it's impossible to make all of the stakeholders happy with the decisions, leaders make. But what as leaders, we have control over is the delivery of that message. So it's important to be empathetic and, formulating a message. It's important to be considerate. It's important to understand from the person who's listening to that message. It's important to listen, put yourself in their shoes and listen from their perspective if that message is going to land well. And when it doesn't, it is the responsibility of a leader to sit down and work with that, team member or direct report or employee and make sure that, they transition into the change smoothly. The downside of that, being in a leadership position, is sometimes there's backlash. I would say most of the times there's backlash. There's at least one person who would, where the message wouldn't sit well. And then there is emotional impact to that. As leaders, people are not bulletproof. So especially if you're an empathetic leader, it's going to really hit you hard. So when that happens, it's important to have an emotional outlet. It could be anything. Just step away from the computer, listen to music, go for a jog, work out, journal, meditate, or, anything that you want to do. It's important to make sure that it doesn't have that emotional impact, when that message is being delivered. So yeah, the takeaway here is make sure you're considerate when you're formulating the message. Make sure that you understand from the other person's perspective how that message is going to land. Be prepared, when there's backlash or when, there's more questioning. Try not to take it personally. We're all working towards the same goal. So that is something that should be on everybody's mind. So yeah, that's about controlling your delivery.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important for the folks who are transitioning into these roles where there is so much change. And it, for folks who are new graduates, it's really important to know how you're being communicated to. And for folks looking to step into leadership positions who've sort of started working for a few years now more than ever is a time to kind of practice those things, because we can't really fathom what's happening in people's homes where this is like important, like more than ever. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think this is such an important message for just all of us listening. My follow-up question to this is, can you give me an example of a time when you were drawing a boundary in the workplace with a team member or peer or coworker, whilst being an empath and whilst feeling all these feelings? Because I think in practice, it's we are consuming material on social media that or books that tell us how to draw boundaries, but sometimes that's much harder in practice.
Yeah.
And so I think what you say has an impact, because the folks listening are STEM people and specifically aerospace people. So I think it really makes a difference. Your insight makes a difference here.
So I think you hit on a very important note, Ricky, especially during these times. Pandemic has taken a toll on everybody. It doesn't have to be that you were down with COVID or, one of your family members was down. It has a mental impact on you just by being consumed with work. There's no separation of work life, because your life has become work, because it's in the same place now, especially when people are working remote. So it's become more important now to draw those boundaries. As leader, for me personally, as a leader, I would love to be accessible to everybody on my team, be there to help them, but at the same time, it's important to coach them to learn ways to overcome certain situations and not and resist trying to step in at each and every point they need help. One of the most recent changes that I have made in terms of drawing boundaries is meeting fatigue has become a real thing. I'm mostly in meetings from, almost 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then after 5 p.m. is when I actually do my work. So meeting fatigue is real. And I know it's not just me. It's a lot of people. It doesn't have to be leaders. It's also, technical contributors who are in this position. So it's important to actually draw boundaries in the sense, if it doesn't, so when somebody says, hey, can I get 10 minutes of your time? I would like to quickly jump on a call. I normally respond by saying, could you please let me know what the agenda is? Is this something we can try to resolve offline? Can you send me an email? Can I get back to you a little later? So that way you avoid those 10 minutes of, FaceTime with someone, and that time can be used wisely, either working on something, taking time for yourself to just breathe, or just go for a walk. So that is how that is one thing that I've actually started implementing recently. And the other thing that I struggle with still is drawing boundaries when it comes to sharing with coworkers. So for me, the idea of coworkers being friends is fantastic, and that is what I always aim for. At the same time, we get loaded with personal stuff. So it's also important to let not the personal stuff that's going on with your colleagues affect you. Try not to, again, make this personal. Acknowledge it. Tell them that you're sorry that they're going through all of those things. At the same time, it's important to learn when to take a step back and not get involved emotionally in those situations.
Yeah, I absolutely hear you. I think definitely with sharing, that's a struggle and challenge even in a graduate school working environment. And so it's like even more so when you're working at a place for a even longer time. So that's really important for all of us to learn. Um, so my last question just on this topic is, what sort of advice have you received from your mentors just about these topics of controlling your delivery and drawing boundaries? Is there anything that has been tried and tested from them that they've passed on to you that you'd now like to pass on to us?
Yeah. So one best advice that I have gotten from my mentor is there's no comfort in growth and there's no growth in comfort. So what he meant by that was, you will have to face change, and I can only convince my team or my organization that change is good when I truly believe that change is happening for good. So it's important for me when a decision has been passed down by technical leadership team. It's important for me to understand that growth is a good thing, and I have to get out of my own comfort zone in order to grow. So that's number one. And then the other message that I received is, initially during my transition into a leadership role, I took things very personally, and that's when I was told that all that I have control over is how I communicate, but I have no control over somebody else's response to my message, and I should be okay to let go and be okay with it. So
Yeah, that's really important. And I think what you shared about change there, I think all of us need to kind of go back and just re-listen to that. That was really good quote that I'm definitely going to write down after
yeah.
our conversation. So in terms of the next topic, um, I'd love to move on to listening with curiosity. And my question is, when deadlines aren't met, and feedback hasn't been implemented or strong opinions are expressed, as in all the tough things in a workplace, how do you navigate it compassionately as a leader, given all the other things you've just shared?
Interesting question. It lands at a very good time because I take coaching sessions. So this is a time where it is, companies are going through performance reviews and self-reflection reviews, and all of those things that you put together to convince your boss that you're ready for a promotion, or you've had a fantastic year. So when during these sessions, what is important is to be open, go with an open mindset, go with the growth mindset. So it is important to listen with curiosity. If somebody didn't meet a deadline, it's important to ask open-ended questions and, say, hey, I noticed that, you slipped the due dates. Was there a reason? What was going on? Most of the times there is a reason, good reason why this happens. Either the scope wasn't complete, there was additional scope, or there were resources not available to do a certain work. So instead of jumping and judging the person and blaming the person, we should always try to go with open mind and listen with curiosity why certain things are happening the way it is. I think as humans, one of our natural tendency is to judge a person. Even I think I've done this. I'm guilty of this too. When we actually have a new person on board, the first mistake that they do, like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? Letting this person work for my team. But it's just a growth, you have to be okay with people making mistakes. The sooner they make those mistakes, the better it is for their growth and for the team's growth. Everybody can learn from that mistake. So, so I think the entire team, company, organization benefits when people listen with curiosity instead of, judging the other person.
Yeah, I love that. I think the thing that you mentioned about judging a team member as a manager came up as a example in my management of human resources course today, where one of the questions we were asked is, what would a manager do? So some of the responses were, you can fire them or you
Yeah.
can put some resources to train them. But I love what you said about just listening with curiosity first, because just asking questions like, and what else and making sure um everything is like off their chest and they get to like make their case um like honors their humanity more, and you like
Yeah.
yeah get to interact with them as a human being and not just a worker. um
I think one of the things, nowadays, one of the things that I have noticed is there's always a reason behind why something happens. When I ask a person, hey, you were supposed to do this, why haven't you done this yet? They would say, oh, sorry, my kid fell sick and I had to go pick her up from daycare. Or, I'm sorry, somebody, in the family is having trouble, so I have to tend to them. Or, hey, I have to go to the bank, do something. Everybody is trying really hard, given the circumstances they are in today. So I think as a leader, we should always try to give the other person a benefit of doubt before just resigning and saying, oh, they're done. Like you mentioned, I want to fire them, or I don't want them on my team anymore. I think everybody deserves a second chance for, considering everything that people are going through today. I know I would appreciate a
yeah,
second chance if I made a mistake. So.
yeah, absolutely. um so my follow-up question to that is, what does listening with an open mind look like, feel like in the virtual environments that we're in now? And how do we really show folks, both personally and professionally, that we are listening? And I know I really struggle with this because I'm really quick to like thinking about the solutions for them as they're speaking instead of actually like just pausing my brain and listening. So yeah.
It's a very hard thing, Ricky. I think to give 100% dedicated, like attention to somebody who's speaking, it's very hard. A lot of people, normally tend to interrupt the person who's speaking, or try to formulate responses in their mind while the other person is talking. So for me, listening with curiosity, or paying attention to the other person, comes from number one rule: keep your phones down. Phones are our biggest distraction. Even when you're a meeting, it's very easy to get distracted. I see people normally reaching for their phone, having their phones up on the table. It's a little disrespectful as well when, the person who's presenting or talking notices somebody else reaching, to reach out to their phones. So I would say keep your phones down, number one. And number two, if somebody is like me, where you start formulating responses while the other person is talking down, don't try to write, sentences on what you want to say next. Instead of, write down phrases that caught your attention, and then wait for your time, so you have the entire information before you respond to that person. If you forget what that other person said, it's always okay to say, hey, I kind of remember that you mentioned something about this. Would you mind repeating that? I would like to to prepare my answer better. So that's another strategy that I try and use when people are talking. The other thing is, as I mentioned, don't interrupt the person, because that's disrespectful. And, people just think that you're out there to have an argument instead of trying to solve a problem. And finally, once the person has completed their, putting across their message, I always try and start with, um, just to make sure I understand. This is just to make sure I understand this correctly. This is what I heard, and then I repeat or kind of summarize what they just said, so they feel heard. And then try to, respond. That way, they'll say, "Okay, this person actually understood what I was trying to say," and then, they're responding. They're not just trying to win an argument. So that would be my that would be the few tips.
Yeah, I love this. And I usually in these conversations give like ESPN highlights, but I think there were so many good points in there that I think everyone listening just has to just go back and like process and write it down. And as you were speaking, I was just thinking like Oh wow, like you have really great advice about this. Like it's a great thing that I have you on talking about this because that's why you're in the leadership position that you're in. Like it all makes sense. Okay, so I was wondering if you had any just other thoughts on any of the two topics before this, controlling delivery and listening with curiosity, or if you're okay to kind of move on to the third topic.
I don't think I had anything else I wanted to say. I'm good with moving on. Unless
Okay,
you had any questions or your viewers had any questions you wanted to bring up, I'm
so
okay to move on.
no questions so far, but I will read out questions from the chat as they come up. Okay, so the third section is, oh, we got a wave. Someone waved. Thank you, Three Sisters Astronomy. um, so, okay, so the third topic is consuming biographies. And I kind of took this topic as walking the paved path, and not reinventing the wheel. And so something that you shared was how you don't need to go about reinventing the wheel if there's so many resources that exist already. And I wanted to sort of unpack that with you. And one of my first questions in unpacking that is how do you, so, folks listening or people online who are accessing a Instagram Live, kind of know about podcasts and all these different resources, but there's so many out there. So when you type the word business in, or money, or leadership, or self-care on these like keywords on Spotify, there's a lot of content to consume. Or at Barnes and Noble, there's a lot of books in these sections. And so I guess my question is, how do you synthesize your learnings from the things you consume, biographies, podcasts, etc.?
So I'm a little old school when it comes to, like taking notes and everything. So I prefer writing it down. So I have a digital notebook where I create folders and kind of organize them by themes, but I also enjoy the feel of writing. So whenever I come across anything that I read in a book, I just try to make notes. I hate scribbling on the book, that I'm reading it. So I try not to make any notes or tags in the book itself. But I do have a digital book that, every now and then I just go back. Like, for example, one of the themes that I've been going back a lot recently is on feedback. So I have a whole notebook dedicated to feedback. It could be giving feedback, it could be receiving feedback. And then there's another section, another notebook that I've created on leading through chaos and crisis. So when I read a book, if something about that topic pops up, then I go and make a note there. So each theme helps me lead the team in certain situations. So that's how I kind of synthesize what I read. I'm not great at listening podcasts. I have very short attention span when it comes to listening to something. So I prefer reading a book. So everything, most of the things that I read, I try to organize it by themes and record it in my digital notebook.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love digital notebooks because you can like highlight, color code,
Yeah.
copy paste, like make flashcards, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you want to process.
Yeah.
So kind of following up to that, and on the topic of not reinventing the wheel, what are areas that you haven't had to reinvent the wheel in?
So those have been mostly the soft skill areas, like, time management. Reading through Steve Jobs, biography, and I think most recently I was reading former President Obama's Promised Land. So all of these books talks a lot about how they manage time, with, having family on one side, their career on the other side. Time management is of essence, and it's a soft skill that nobody can really teach you how to do it unless you experiment yourself. So that's one area. The other one has been in keeping my attitude in check. Try not to be overly aggressive with, with the goals that I have set. Try not to be overly aggressive with the team members. Be empathetic. Be considerate. Those are all the things, that help me keep my attitude in check. The other aspect of it is networking. So a lot of the business related books that I read help me a lot in understanding putting into good use the networking skills and some of the do's and don'ts that I can learn. The other part of it is, I think it's attached to keeping attitude in check, is building relationships at work. I think there's a real great benefit in, going one step beyond just being co-workers. Like, you don't want to go into your work and say hi to somebody and at the end of the day say bye and then just leave. You want to have that, human social connection with someone. So, maybe it could be just going out for lunch, or, doing something, going out for a happy hour, anything of that sort. It's all about building that relationship. So I think these are some of the areas that I have actually, that has actually helped me a great deal in building those skills by reading the books.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the folks who um, kind of follow my journey here, one of the biggest questions that they have is about time management. And so I think it's a really good suggestion to read biographies, or even like the Spark Notes edited version, or if you're on sort of a digital, like Kindle sort of device, or reading on any digital platform, you can like search for the topics that you're interested in if you're time strapped as a student. But time management, like I think I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of questions on it, and I think um, it plagues everyone, but it can also be a deeply personal thing where it's like based on everyone's circumstances. And so I've never had a clear cut answer, because my circumstances might be different from someone else's. And
Yeah.
even between my graduate and undergraduate degrees, I've had more time to kind of think for myself because my circumstances have changed, which has led me to do better. And so I really love that. And I just really hope that all the buzzwords that you're sharing, people like do go back and like write this down, process it. That's like a big exercise that I do after each of these conversations, because they're totally self-serving. I learn so much, and by virtue of like me having this public chat, others get to learn too.
Yeah.
So it's like an added benefit. So my follow-up question to that is, what are areas where books, etc., have inspired you, but they haven't been able to provide a roadmap ahead, particularly at the intersections that um, you and I exist in? There's so many people who follow me who like have similar aspirations and like are in those intersections, and there's just like no roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to share a funny story. I was talking to my coach about what it's felt like these past couple months, and I shared how I felt like I had like two machetes on my arms, and I was like just cutting the corn, like I was in a field in Iowa cutting the corn with my two arms. And it was tiring. But then I look in front of me, and there's like someone in front of me clearing the path for me, and I kind of like see you as one of those people. Um, and so I get to like benefit from knowing you. But what are things that have particularly challenged you? Um, and do you have your own Manasa Srinivas? I guess.
So I had, well, thank you for that, Ricky. It really motivates me to reach out to more people and help them in this journey. So for me, I have been very fortunate to have found those mentors early in my career. You mentioned that I worked at Collins Aerospace. I had fantastic mentors there, female mentors actually, who I could be very honest with, and just express to them what I was going through. So they helped me a lot. When I came to Wisk, I have found that kind of, a sense of motivation, inspiration from my male mentors. So it's yes, the answer to that is yes. I have my own Manasa Srinivas, in places where I go. But I think it's very important to kind of understand what your short-term and long-term goals are. Now I'm going back to the question that you asked. Where do I struggle in spite of having all these resources? Where I actually struggle is in setting those short-term and long-term goals by identifying my own ability. There are times when I overestimate myself. There are times when I grossly underestimate myself. And in setting those goals, sometimes when I achieve them easily, I start, doubting myself. Was it all luck, or was it really my ability to, knock things off? So Self-doubt, it's a little different to imposter syndrome, I would say. This has a lot to do with self-doubt and identifying your own ability, not necessarily feeling that you're a fraud, but not knowing the extent to which you can actually, tackle. So for me, that's an area that I struggle, short-term and setting short-term and long-term goals by identifying what I'm capable of.
And do you think that using resources like coaching or having workplace mentors and just outside of work mentors um, kind of builds the support system you need for those support structures? I mean, there's so many other types of support systems like family members, friends, things of that sort, but um, is there like a gap there that you're looking to fill, or do you feel like really well supported by all of these sort of structures that you've put in place to be able to identify kind of like all of these goals at proper capacity, with a mirror kind of reflecting back saying, okay, I'm doing the right thing and there's like little room for doubt here?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky again to have a fantastic support system. So from my mentors, I understand, I kind of understand what I'm capable of doing. They always remind me, no, you're underestimating yourself, or no, you're overestimating yourself. Give yourself time to learn some skills and then, proceed with this, or you're ready for it. Go, go do it. And then that's the kind of, feedback I get from my mentors. And with my coach, she always brings out the blind spots in me. Good, whether the good kind of blind spots, bad kind of, blind spots, she always tries and brings, bring that out and helps me educate on what I'm ignoring in myself. And with my parents, I can be very, very vulnerable. I can just, if I was embarrassed at work, if something didn't go according to the plan, if I'm feeling if I don't feel like sharing that with my mentors or with my coach, my parents always is there to listen. And, they are my, best critics. They say, yes, you screwed up, or no, it's okay. Everybody goes through this, it's a learning curve. You'll be fine. So I think I use, and then finally, of course, people like you who say, you've been a very good mentor is also inspiring, because then I know, okay, I'm doing something right. If I'm influencing or if I'm having an impact on somebody else's professional growth, then there must be something that I'm doing right. So by tapping into different avenues or different areas of, your mentorship, your personal guide, your coach, your parents, your friends, family, whoever it is, I think everybody has to use it to the best of their ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess this is a question for the undergraduate version of me who had an academic coach, but not a life coach. And I was recently able to kind of like um, transition into having a life coach. That's something that's been really beneficial for me. But like monetarily, I've been able to do that with my graduate school stipend. And so I guess I was curious about how um, like people find coaches. This is a general question just for my audience because I've gotten that question. And
Mm-hmm.
I found my coach through my university and being here for a while and um, kind of being very encouraged by personal development. So I was able to work at the centers for academic success and I found those and I found my people that way. I was wondering how new graduates would do that or how undergraduates would do that based on just your experiences of yeah, knowing coaches and being able to afford coaches.
Yeah, so for me, it's the way I actually look at coaches and mentors is when somebody else has already, found that person through somebody else. So I always go in with references. That's always how it has worked best for me. So, for example, in this leadership position, when I started new, I spoke with another leader and told him that, hey, I need help in this area. Do you know someone who can help me, or can you mentor me? And that's when he said, oh, you know what? I went to this coach. She's good. Try her out. And then, that's how I found my current coach. As a new grad, when I started working at Intel, that was one of the things that I was struggling with. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea where I could go from here on. What are the options that's available to me? And then apart from professional growth, there's also personal growth. Because I believe when you learn a skill, it's not only going to have an impact on your professional career, it's also going to change you for the good, in terms of your personal skills as well. So it's also important to understand, does that skill match with what your interests are, and where do you want to go next? So the life coach, professional coach, leadership coach, kind of help you open up those doors and understand yourself better, understand your interests better. I had no idea I was interested in leadership until I was actually 5, 6 years into my career. And when I decided to leave the technical area and move into leadership, one of my very good mentors had told me that I wouldn't succeed in leadership. So be very careful about the messages you get, from the mentors as well. Most of them are amazing. But if you get told that you can't do something else, you should take that as a challenge and, do your best to prove them wrong. Nobody knows, your complete, ability other than yourself, not even your mentors to an extent. So use it wisely, talk to people, network, see who you see who you connect with. I think that's very important in finding mentors, life coaches, or any other leadership coaches. You have to see if you have that connection with them. Do they understand you? Are they saying things just to make you happy? Are they saying things just to, put somebody else down? That's not real mentoring. If you are wrong and if you have to, shake yourself off and, understand things from other person's perspective, you need somebody who can tell you on your face that you have to tone your attitude down. So find someone who is going to help you grow in all of these areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting a second opinion feels so important, particularly because what they shared was like absolutely not true for you. And I wanted to answer a question um, from the handle Black Space Girl, and essentially they were asking um, that it's really hard finding a coach as a PhD student, and followed up with saying it's like finding the right therapist. And I guess I did want to add that going on Psychology Today and searching by location for therapists can also help you find the keyword of coach, and you can read all of their bios and get referrals um, like through that platform if coaches aren't available through your school or through your workplace. I think Psychology Today does a really good job of summarizing people's backgrounds. You can search by like all sorts of filters, particularly for international students. Someone I know wanted to find someone sort of with her intersectional identity. So I wanted to just answer that question. I don't know if you have anything to add for that.
Just that, Ricky, I think most of the workplaces today are encouraging, seeking out help. We have a platform where we get, I think it's about 8 sessions free. So you have a life coach and you have a therapist and a counselor. If you want to discuss personal stuff. So 8 sessions are free. And beyond that, if you want to sit down and continue with that coach, you're free to do so. So I think a lot of companies, understanding the environment we are in, because of the pandemic and everything, have taken a step towards mental health. So it's really important to understand what resources and support is available to you. So go talk to your HR, go talk to your, I think, university admin, folks, and understand what are some of the options that's available to you if you really need help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, and so my final question for this topic is, what is something from your favorite biography or biographies that have really stuck with you that you can share here?
Yeah, I think the most favorite of all the books that I have read is Michelle Obama's Becoming. There's so much to learn, just in that book. As a woman and a woman of color, for me, it's important to understand that it's okay to, like struggle your way through. Not necessarily that you have to always struggle, but just looking at how vulnerable the first, former first lady was, and in saying, that her and her husband had arguments. She felt like there were days when she had to give up her career to support her family, and and also just talk about simply the pressure of being a woman, where she had a miscarriage, and her marriage was falling apart at certain point. So all of this vulnerability and the lessons that she has shared through these situations, and finding success in them, finding that silver lining is so inspirational. And one of the biggest takeaways for me from that is I'm at an age where I'm ready to find that person and settle down. Finding a partner, finding a spouse is as important as, what you tend to, inspire yourself to do. Because ultimately they say marriage, Michelle Obama says marriage is a seesaw, where you have to, where the other person's priority has to be to include you in a lot of decisions that they make. And you need to have fun along the way. So you need a good support system, having a family, and also realizing your goal. And the other message that I took away from her book is you can really do it all. Women don't have to give up one thing to achieve another. But you have to understand the importance of compromise, and when and how you need to compromise. So those are the two biggest takeaway that I took, from her book. The other book that I wanted to mention was it's a biography, what's his name? I think it was Isaacson, who has written the biography of Steve Jobs. So that's another fantastic book. The first takeaway from that book was you won't understand why certain things are happening. When you are in that situation, the only time you can actually think about, whether something happened for a good or not is when you look back. So it's always important to look back and connect the dots and see, how you landed yourself in a situation where you are, good or bad. You have to reflect on your journey, because there's no learning or growing if you don't reflect on your journey. So that's one. And the second one is do not feel that you have to invent something, to succeed. I think it's important to look around and see if there are things that you can improve. I think that's exactly what Steve Jobs did. Phones were lying around before he even started the whole concept of iPhone. We had MP3 players when he decided to come up with iPods. So he did not create something new. He took what was already in existence, and he, just achieved it, seeing what the market needs are. So it's important to understand, that you don't have to reinvent, or discover something new. Knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do in order to succeed. So those were
Yeah,
my takeaways from that book.
I love that. And there's so many good quotes in there. Again, that like I just need to like take a minute to process. So I have a few questions to wrap up, and this can either be like quick sentences, or we can have like a discussion about it, and we'll see kind of how far we get.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what does success in STEM mean to you?
So success in STEM means the ability to acquire the skills and knowledge that I wish for, and the opportunity to actually put them in practice.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, so following up to that is, what does wellness mean to you?
It is for me, wellness means physical, mental, and spiritual well-being.
Yeah. Okay. What does effective leadership mean to you?
So effective leadership to me means providing clarity, inspiring, motivating people, providing a sense of purpose to the folks on my team, and also to help the team members and team members realize their personal goals, and also to achieve the organizational goals.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about your morning and or night routine, and what helps you bounce back when you fall off track.
So my morning routine, again, I've been trying very hard to achieve this. I haven't been successful yet, is to not look at my phone as soon as I wake up.
Yeah.
So my phone, just sits there, next to my bed. So it's very easy to just grab it as soon as I wake up, but I'm trying not to do that. So I wake up, give myself at least like half hour to get into the, mindset of, the work starting and everything, have a cup of coffee, spend some time by myself. So I haven't been very successful in that. I'm trying to, trying to get into practice there. But I have a solid night routine. So I try to go to bed early because I have early meetings. So I try to be in bed by about 10:30, 11. Prior to that, an hour prior to that, I make sure that I shut off, my phone and TV, and I at least read like one chapter of a book. And I've been very notorious for having late night snacks and late dinners. So I try to have dinner by 6:30. So it's balanced. I'm not sleeping with a full tummy. So that's my night routine. Very simple. And if I'm very exhausted with work, and if there's something running in my mind, I always try and journal before I go to bed, so it doesn't keep me up at night.
Yeah, super important things, just so that we
Yes.
don't have our mind running. Um, okay, so we got through all the questions to wrap up, which is awesome. And I was wondering if there's anything else that you'd like to share and how best the audience members can reach you, or follow you, or just follow your journey.
Yeah, something that I want to share. Thank you for this opportunity, Ricky. This has been fantastic. I hope this has helped your audience as well. If they would like to get in touch with me, the best way to do this would be via LinkedIn. Just look up my name and you'll find me there. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. I'm also on Instagram, so you can just, you know where to, how to look up. So find me on Instagram, or, if it's okay, they can reach out to you. You can give them my email address or let them know how to reach out. I'm accessible anyway they need me to. So
Awesome. Okay, this was such a great conversation, and there's so many people from my audience that will benefit from this just because, again, you've like macheted the way for us, because it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. I think like being an international student, and so thank you for sharing so much inspiration. Just because there's like getting that first job is just the first step, and like you can't, or I personally feel like we can't be this tired just before starting. Like we're young, we're supposed to be like energetic, and there's still so much to do, and there's so many structural challenges and systemic challenges that make us so tired at the intersections that we're in. And your just insights have helped so many people and will continue to help folks because it will live on this platform. And I guess I also wanted to plug that you're open to other speaking opportunities. If anyone listening on here is part of any organization that would like to have Manasa on, I think that would be awesome. Um, but yeah, those are all the questions for me, and I can send your email to anyone that reaches out as well.
great. Thank you, Ricky. This was fantastic. It was great talking with you.
It was awesome talking to you, and to anyone listening, I will be posting this as soon as we get off, and you can always find this on my profile and link it and share it. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye.